Okay friends, to get started on this window regulator job, you're going to want to make sure that you have your window approximately 3 fingers down. You can see that I have it just like this. That's going to make it so you have access from inside this door panel. Let's get started. Okay friends, it's time to get started. Let's go ahead and open up the door, and then we're going to come right to this panel right here. You can just use a plastic trim tool. We don't want to mar up our paint. Stick it in here and gently pop it off and out of the way. Set this aside. Now let's move along to removing this cover right here as well. Get that out of the way. That exposes a Torx bit screw right there. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's make our way down to this handle. You're going to find another protective cover. Let's just continue with that pocket screwdriver. We'll pop this up and out of there. We have another Torx right there. That one looks a little smaller. Now we're going to use a Torx bit. Looks just like this, a star essentially. Put it right in there. This is a T25. Grab that screw out of there, set it aside. Do the same to the one in the handle. This one's much shorter. We'll set this aside as well. Now we're going to move along to removing this piece right here. There's going to be a hidden bolt underneath there. So I'm just going to carefully get underneath this area. Right here. Stick my trim tool in there. We'll set this aside. Now the hidden bolt is right underneath this corner right here. So let's just go ahead and take that right out of there with a 10mm. Now we're going to remove the 4 bolts that hold the speaker to the door itself. You're going to find 2 different sized Torx head screws. The black ones are T20. The gray ones are T25. Essentially same star sockets, just like before. Nice long screw there. Another long one. Carefully grab onto that speaker. It is going to have a magnet on the back side that you're going to want to pay attention to, but it also has an electrical connector. Go ahead and squeeze on that tab. We'll separate this. Always inspect your electrical connections. If you see any corrosion, you want to make sure you take care of it. Let's pop that out of there so it's not holding on anymore. We'll set the speaker aside. Now let's move along to removing this entire area right here. I'm just going to carefully get in between with something small and skinny. Start pulling it out. Once it starts coming out, I'll use my plastic trim tool here. Start gently prying it away. Okay, now we can come from behind this here. Just get this insulation out of the way. Let's start disconnecting the wiring here. Got a little push tab. Let's go ahead and squeeze in on that. And we'll lift this up and out. Just take a look at it. Inspect that, set it aside. Open this up. Now there's going to be a push tab on each of these, pretty much just over where my thumb is right here. Go ahead and squeeze on that, draw it up and out. There we are. So now there's these little tabs right here, and these essentially just kind of hold this to the door panel. You can either leave them on or just remove them. They're fairly simple overall. Let's look at this one. I'm just going to bring it up so that this can line up, and I can slide it right out of there. We'll do the same to this one. Like I said, this one's harder to see. Bring it up, slide it. Now we can set this aside. Now we're going to move along to removing these 3 mounting screws right here using a T25. I can move around a little bit. Let's remove this 10mm headed bolt right here. set that aside. Before we can start sliding our door panel up to remove it, we're going to have to go ahead and slide this as well. But there's a mounting bolt right in the center. It comes through from the back side this way. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a T20 socket right here and fully remove that bolt. Now we can grab this. We're just going to gently pull it like that, and that separates that. Set this screw aside. Let's also grab this 10mm headed bolt that's hidden inside here. Now let's reach inside here. There's a plastic tab. We're just going to carefully grab onto that, give it a little wiggle. We can remove this and set it aside. Grab that door panel, gently pull it away. Now let's grab onto this wiring right here. We're just going to gently pull it out of its spot. It's in here as well. Slide that right out of there. Next, we're going to carefully start lifting up on this. We want to bring the door lock up and out of this area, just like that. We can set that aside. Now let's start disconnecting this. I'm just going to use my little fork tool, try to pry this away from the door. There's a squeeze tab right where my thumb is. Go ahead and squeeze on that. We'll separate the two of these. Inspect them, of course. Set this down. So now we're going to get behind the door panel here. I'm just going to try to use my trim tool. You can use whatever you've got. And what I want to do is just grab this yellow piece right here and pull it away from the rod. That kind of locks the rod in. It's hard to do from here. Now once you have that slid out of the way, just go ahead and lift up on that rod. And we're going to follow it over here. We want to pop it out of this mounting location as well. All right. Just give this a little wiggle. Let's go ahead and grab onto this tab right here. Pull that out. Set that aside. Now I'm going to carefully use my screwdriver, and if you were to look through this hole right here, you can see there's a small hole in the glass. There's also a piece of plastic kind of protruding through it towards us right here. We just essentially want to go ahead and grab onto that plastic, gently force it through the window without actually breaking the window, and then we're going to carefully lift up on the window a little bit to separate the two. All right, I have this one separated. We'll do the same to the other one. All right, now that I have it separated, we're just going to carefully grab onto that window. Get our tape ready. This up and over. Let's bring this. Just going to bring this up, make sure it's sitting in the window still so it's as safe as possible. Make sure it's sitting in the door still. Put some tape on it. Tape's a lot cheaper than window, so as much tape as you feel as though you need, so it's definitely not going to come down and hurt you or to get damaged. So once you're sure that you have the window in the proper position that you can actually remove it from the window regulator, we'll just continue on by removing our 3 mounting bolts that hold the motor to the window assembly. You're going to find some T20 screws. There's one here, one there, and there should be one right there. Carefully separate these two. Grab onto that window regulator. Start pulling it out of the door here. We have one last mounting bolt there, and then we'll remove this side as well. All right. Just gonna try to find the right angle on this. Slide it inside the door. There it is, friends. All right, now we can start installing our brand new window regulator. Just gonna start on this side, start sliding it into the door. There we are. You wanna make sure you have all of your cables on the outer portion of the door. If you put them on the inside, it's gonna be a mess and it doesn't work right. Slide this into position as well. Now let's grab our mounting bolt for up here. Snug it up. Okay. Now let's pay attention down near the bottom here. You can see where the slot is. Just try to get that as close to lined up as possible, and then we'll just continue snugging this until it's tight. That feels good. That's pretty much where we need it to be. Now I'm just going to take this mounting bolt and I'll just start it in a few threads to hold this still for me. And then we can grab our window and start pulling it down into position. Okay, now I'm going to carefully start sliding it down. And what we're paying attention to is to try to get it to line up with its tabs on this. It's going to come nice and slow. All right, it feels like it stopped right there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the plastic kind of goes around the outer portion of the window. That looks pretty good. Do the same on this one before I go too far. Okay, go ahead and press it down. We need to get it so the tabs lock in. All right, that one's locked in. This one right here is locked in. I'm going to give the window a little wiggle. That feels good. Now we're going to line the motor up with the window regulator here. Should go right in. Looks good. Let's grab our 3 mounting bolts. Start in all 3. Once they're all started, we'll snug them up. Okay. Make sure those are nice and tight. I'm just going to take this wiring, put it back in here so it's nice and secure. It's not flopping around at all. We can take that, we'll take the window motor, line it up in a position, start in all 3 bolts again, and snug them up. Let's get this bolt back out of here real quick. Okay. So now we've got a little bit of slack here. Move this around. We can try to get this lined up. I'm just going to reach up through the speaker hole here. I'll get this lined up. Start in those 3 mounting bolts. Snug them up. Reconnect in your mirror. Give it a nice click. Secure that in. Okay. Now we can start connecting in our rods. We have the one for the inside door handle. Now we're going to reconnect in our door handle here. Just go ahead and slide that rod in. We'll lock it in. If for some reason your lock is broken, you need to make sure that it's secured. You definitely don't want this rod falling off inside the door, so just use a wire tie or something to like. Now let's get this in here. There we are. We can grab that lock, slide it into its corresponding hole in the door panel here. There we are. So now at this point, we're going to have to try to lift this door panel up, press it in, and then bring it down. Now the next thing that we're going to do is continue on by grabbing onto our window channels right up in here. I'm just going to go ahead and twist it around until it lines up the bolt hole for me, and then I can start in my bolt. See it moving around in there. So now I'm going to line this forward one up. I'm just going to stick my hand in through the speaker hole here. Once it's lined up, I'll go ahead and start in my bolt. All right, I'm just going to loosen that up just a tiny bit. I want to make sure that I can still move it around a little bit. Now I'm just going to line up this lower bolt hole here, the window channel. Start that in. Wheel this around until it lines up perfect. All right, now that I have that snug, there we are. Move back up here, we'll continue snugging this. Snug this one down here. That's tight. Put this one back in here. That's tight. Let's get our speaker back in here. Click it in, give it a nice little tug. Now we're going to put this up here. Go ahead and slide the wire up into its position here. Bring that in. So now you're going to have two of these long screws. They're going to go diagonal from each other. One right up here. Start that in. Diagonal. Got our two shorter screws. Make sure they're all snug. Let's get our protective cover on there. You have all your little push clips. They're going to pop into their corresponding holes. Just get this lined up. Once you have it lined up, a couple light loving bonks. We're just going to secure our wire back into where we got it from. Let's get this back in here. Just kind of slide it in. It's going to slide rearward, and then you can put in your mounting bolt. Find the hole. Snug it up. All right, that's snug. It's just screwing into plastic, so we don't want to necessarily over tighten it. Got our mirror switch there. This thing out of the way. Plug this in. Just going to put the insulation back over it. There we are. Now we're just going to line up all of our tabs with their corresponding holes, and then we'll press it in. That feels pretty great. Couple of loving bonks. Let's get the last of our screws in here. Try to get this one in here. All right. We can get our covers back on. Don't forget about this one. Perfect. Move our way up here. Go ahead and line this up. Perfect. Okay, I got the key in the on position. Let's go ahead and test this window. I want to make sure it goes all the way down. And of course, all the way back up. The battery's a little low on this, but it's functioning properly. It's not binding. Perfect. Clean up your mess. Drive safe.